Welcome to the Road to the Ryder Cup, hosted by Dr. Jeff Poblarski and my dad, PGA golf professional Frank Darby. Let's go USA!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Road to the Ryder Cup. My name is Frank Darby, and my co-host is Dr. Jeff Poblarski. Just going to pass it over to Jeff right now because he's the statistics guy, and he's the one that's giving us the rundown of how much time is left and what's going on at Bethpage. So take it away, Jeff.
Yes, 62 days to the Ryder Cup. As you know, I am the golf performance director at Bethpage, so I'm up there a lot. It's super exciting. I will tell you that there's a lot of outings going on there. Every Monday and Tuesday when I show up to work, there's hundreds of people checking in to play the black. A lot of corporations renting the course out, so a lot of activity there. I did want to highlight one. If you do go to Bethpage today, and you go there, you're going to see all these big, huge tents. And to the right of hole number one, probably the biggest tent out there is the International Pavilion. And the tickets for that pavilion were $1,080, all sold out. But it's a nice place. You could go in and get some food and, air conditioned. Hopefully the weather's going to be great. But if it's raining, you could go in that pavilion. So just a little update on that. The last round of golf on Bethpage Black will be on August 17th. August 18th, it shuts down, and then they're going to build that amphitheater, horseshoe-looking amphitheater-like stands there, which will be where the opening ceremonies are, and obviously the first tee there. A few things just in my own personal life: be heading out to the U.S. Amateur, women's and men's, senior Women's U.S. Open, and then the Walker Cup, and we will be providing the performance and recovery care at those events. So little updates on everything, and back to you, Dobbs.
All right, thank you, Jeff. Hey, I one thing about that International Pavilion, that's going to be unbelievable. Will the USA people be allowed in there, or will they not go in there?
If you have the ticket, you're in.
Cool. Hey, listen, we've had some great guests on our show here for the past, I don't know, what has it been, about 100 days at least, Jeff. And, we're honored to have Ed Kull come with us. He's the athletic director at my alma mater, St. John. So, Ed, thanks for coming on the road to the Ryder Cup.
Frank and Jeff, it's my honor to be on with you guys. Exciting time for golf globally, but also in our backyard here in New York. So very, very excited to be with you both.
I had one question for you right off the bat, Ed. I did see something in the media that Keegan Bradley, I believe, donated 100 tickets to the athletic department. My question to you is, who's getting access to those tickets?
Yeah, so what Keegan has done is he's donated the 100 tickets to. He really tried to focus on Jeff, and Frank will be happy to hear this too, because many of are his former players and alums. He was working with trying to make sure that all of his golf kids, his golf colleagues, his golf teammates were getting tickets. So we were working closely with his agent, his group, to make sure we were distributing those. Kevin Wayner in our communications office, I know you and Frank have met, has been coordinating that in terms of submissions. Keegan wanted to make sure those closest and around the program were getting access. So we've been working closely with them. It's approximately 100 tickets for men's and women's golf alums, current players. He wanted to make sure he talks about how excited, obviously, both programs to be involved with him and in support of him around this historic event. So he wanted to make sure no one around the program, men or women, was left out. So again, you guys know what a class act Keegan is. Frank knows it better than anybody. There is no Keegan Bradley at St. John's without Frank Darby, so we know what that means. But Keegan just right off the bat wanted to make sure, hey, St. John's, can you coordinate to make sure anybody associated with our golf program at St. John's has access to the Ryder Cup?
Yeah, that's going to be really, really cool. Ed and I have a lot of things in common. First of all, we are both from Queens. We are Catholic student athletes. And hey, listen, I was at St. John's for a long time. Ed was a baseball player, a very good one at Stony Brook. But we both went to Archbishop Molloy High School. So, Ed, tell me a little bit about that experience at Molloy.
Yeah, Frank and I are both Stanners. I know he had a lot of interaction with legendary another St. John's man, Jack Curran, who played basketball and baseball at St. John's. Jack replaced Lou Carnesecca who was the head basketball coach at then St. Anne's, which became Archbishop Molloy there in Jamaica, Queens. And Curran went on to be there over 50 plus years. I played for Jack for baseball, 2 city championships with Jack, lucky enough. And I think a lot of people know about his basketball success as well. And growing up in Queens, Molloy was just an incredible place. All boys school back then when Frank and I went there. And I'm very, very lucky and blessed to have that tradition and history in my life. And it's kind of really paved the way through my career, through St. John's, and that association with Archbishop Molloy. I'm really, really grateful for.
Yeah, Ed, by the way, I played basketball at St. Agnes Cathedral High School, which was kind of the Molloy of Long Island. Yeah, Frank Morris. And we used to play, it was an annual game. We would actually play that game at St. John's. So my claim to fame is I never lost to Molloy. I'm 4-0 against Molloy.
Wow, 4-0.
Yeah.
Wow.
They had a couple of down years there, though, but it was always great to go to St. John's and play that game, especially in the high school situation.
Was that JV or was that varsity?
No, it was varsity. But Ed, going back, listen, super exciting time for the athletic department at St. John's. You have the captain of the Ryder Cup, right here in your backyard. Do you have anything planned at Bethpage or at St. John's leading up to the Ryder Cup?
So yeah, there's been some things we're working on. It's obviously been a little challenging. We have an alum whose company is one of the sponsors of the Ryder Cup. So working in conjunction with him, he's one of our board of trustee members, trying to make sure we get access to the Ryder Cup and do some stuff there. As you both know better than anybody, it's not a cheap proposition in any way. Trying to obviously get access. There's also something that really was sold rather quickly in terms of getting access. And, I started on the job in November and trying to make sure we played catch up on that. So working in conjunction with how do we make sure we entertain some folks. I know we're trying to do some things, Jeff and Frank, trying to utilize the Garden City Hotel, one of the nights prior to, and get some folks together. And, I don't want to, it's even tough to even dare ask Keegan to do anything at this point based on obviously his commitment. I'm curious to hear both your thoughts. Hopefully he's playing and he's captain, but I'll get both your feedback, being the experts in this topic. So I think we just want to make sure we're trying to find either, we talked about doing a bunch of watch parties, especially on the Saturday and Sunday. How do we try to get some access from folks in there, which I think we do in one of the tents. As you can tell, all of the current team and alumni of the programs will be there to support him on premise, thanks to Keegan's generosity at the 100 tickets. And I think the watch parties will be some fun things we try to do around the city and the tri-state area, and trying to get some gear out there. So everybody's obviously supporting Keegan and kind of show some of those watch parties. But not easy to navigate. And, everybody's got a little different of a taste and desire. And then, of course, I know many individuals have already purchased tickets, Jeff. So a lot of our folks are doing their own thing with family and friends. And you both know better than anybody the love of the sport in this tri-state area, especially on Long Island. And for Keegan to be the guy leading us and the captain is quite amazing. And I think in terms of what it represents for St. John's, you both know. This is a global platform like no other in terms of what it means, not only for the country, United States of America, and obviously St. John's University. And again, it's just an extremely proud moment for St. John's. And again, Frank, there is no Keegan Bradley at St. John's without Frank Darby. So the ability of what he built and put together and his program, I know it's got to be a really proud moment for Frank. I'm even curious his thoughts on that.
Yeah. Hey, listen, Keegan was great I loved recruiting him. I loved having him play for me. He was just such a great leader, as we're going to see here with the Ryder Cup as well. And, I think a lot of people, I knew he was a great leader because, he kept my student athletes on that team, pretty much in line. He was a motivational kind of guy, and he definitely has got a lot of old school in him based on his dad being a PGA member and the legendary Pat Bradley being an LPGA Hall of Famer as well. So I thought that was really, really good. But hey, I just want to say something about Ed. So I knew Ed from the development part at St. John's. We worked together for a long, long time. And, there's nothing better. And I'll say this right off the bat right here. I wish I would have had an opportunity to play for Ed Kull or be the coach at St. John's with Ed Kull there as the athletic director, because I can see it from the outside looking in, just how much he cares about not only the student athletes and the alumni, but the coaches as well. And, I think that a lot of athletic departments kind of forget about the coaches sometimes. So, Ed, hats off to, I know the coaches are really, I do speak to a few of them occasionally, and they really do love having you there at the helm at St. John's.
I really appreciate that, Frank. And again, sorry not have that opportunity for you and I as well. And I think, listen, you nailed it before. Queens kid, Archbishop Molloy, went to high school down the block on the other side of the Grand Central Parkway to work at St. John's. Obviously, it's personal for me. Grew up, a St. John's fan. I'm obviously a St. John's alum as well. And I go to work every day with a personal passion. By no means is it a job. And as you know, all those coaches, and a lot of them have been there a while, Frank, you've worked with a lot of them, have the same passion, understanding of the mission of St. John's, and how passionate they are about the university and this program. And it's crazy and it's challenging times right now. You talk about fundraising. Every day is a fundraising conversation for me, or a revenue generation conversation for me. How do we find more and more money, especially the new world of what the NCAA has now created, where we're paying student athletes? But I enjoy it because I truly believe in its mission, its passion, and the role college athletics play for our young people.
Yeah, Ed, one more thing just to talk about St. John's. You followed, well, Jack Kaiser was a good friend of ours and a mentor to all of us as well. And, I miss Mr. Kaiser. I played at St. John's how would you like to play for Jack Kaiser as the athletic director and Doc Gimler as your golf coach? You can imagine just what that family was like. And I think that's the one thing right now. And Ed Mineta is a good friend of mine, and I always loved Ed because he hired me as well. But I think the one other thing that you've brought back in there is the family. And, hey, all families are a little dysfunctional, but, you're doing a great job in running that family. So keep doing that. And I do miss the family part of St. John's, 30 years ago.
Nah, I think you nailed it, Frank. And you just rattled off a bunch of names that I like to say really are the Mount Rushmore of St. John's athletics, right? Whether that be Jack Kaiser, Doc Gimler, Lou Carnesecca, even Ed Mineta is still very much active and involved, still teaching at the university and involved in many of our committees. People have the passion and the love of St. John's, and a man like Jack Kaiser dedicated his whole life to the university. I know he had opportunities to become, commissioners of different leagues or the Big East, or he was running the NIT for many years, and he was a national baseball coach of the year, probably got jobs anywhere throughout the country. And just like Jack Curran, I say that in high school, he turned down jobs at Boston College and Providence because he just loved what he did in the high school. They don't make them like that anymore, Frank. And I know
No.
you know that. And the idea that I get to kind of follow the footsteps of Jack Kaiser means the world to me. I have a bunch of his memorabilia and collectibles in my office that were given to me, and his Coach of the Year awards. So, when the day gets long or challenging or tough, I get to look over and I know he's with me. And I'm not doing this job without him. I got to spend a lot of time with him in my early days at St. John's, my first tour of duty. And then, honestly, as sad as it was to lose Coach Carnesecca in the fall, it was literally my third week on the job. I felt very lucky and fortunate that I got to oversee a lot of his honoring and the ceremonies, his memorial, because he meant so much, not only to me, but the entire university, and always will. So make sure we keep the tradition and history of those men going and keep them alive, because they dedicated their whole life to St. John's University.
Yeah, Ed, as I think I sit on the board of the Lapchek Character Award. You got to put Coach Lapchek as in that Mount Rushmore for sure. But we're looking forward to this year's recipients, who's Gino from University of Connecticut women's basketball, and Gene Stratatori, who's the ref on CBS Sports, who does the college basketball games and the football calls, and also Phil Martelli. But another person, Frank McLaughlin, is going to be honored too. I know you have a long relationship with him, 35 years at Fordham. Any thoughts on Mr. McLaughlin?
Frank McLaughlin is truly, America's treasure. He's known by all. You go to a restaurant with Frank, or you walk into an event with Frank, and he'll introduce himself as Frankie from the Bronx, kid from the Bronx who went to Fordham Prep and played at Fordham University. Great basketball career. I think he got drafted by the Knicks in one of the later rounds, and known for his accolades there on the basketball court. He was he went with Digger Phelps when Digger had that magical year in 1970, 71 there at Fordham. Went with Digger to Notre Dame, where he met his beautiful wife and began his beautiful family. Coached at Harvard for a bunch of years and then came back to his alma mater and was AD, I think, in 1985 at Fordham and had a heck of a run for a good, 40, 30 something years there. I would have never have ended up at Fordham without Frank McLaughlin. I enjoyed my 6 years there so much, and being athletic director at Fordham was a lot of fun. It's a special place. Those Jesuit values are real, as Frank identified our Catholic upbringing as kids in the New York City area. And they've done a great job there in terms of their brand and their academic status and what that means. And so I really enjoyed being AD there, and my focus on that basketball program and trying to resurrect a bunch of athletic stuff was a lot of fun. And Frank from day one's like, hey, I think you could be AD here. And he said that on the first day, the first lunch we had at Pugsley's, a local pizza place there. And I'm indebted to Frank. He's a dear friend. I know I can call him any time of day. He loves Fordham more than anything. He deserves the award more than anything. And that'll be a special time. And I believe there's also be a nice tribute, again, Jeff, to Coach Carnesecca during that Lapchick luncheon, which we'll be at and supportive of. And Frank Alasia, as a special part of that too. I know he's working closely with you, and whatever we could do to help the Lapchick luncheon, totally supportive. I actually did a meeting a couple of weeks ago with his son, Richard, who I'm sure you know very well. And Richard's cause, his mission in life, and fighting for equality and fighting for social justice is just remarkable. And his dad paved the way for him, and he is exactly following the footsteps of his dad. He actually turned 80 years old this week, Richard, so wishing him happy birthday. But Lapchick statue stands outside of my office at St. John's, and you're right about Mount Rushmore for that man. We've had a lot of special individuals come through. That's incredible.
Ed, it must be exciting being the athletic director at the. I think I've seen some early polls here with men's basketball. I think they've got him in the top 3. They may even have him as number 1. So, you know what? I think nothing. They make a big thing about how great the Knicks were at Madison Square Garden and the revival there. I don't think there's anything better than when St. John's is playing good and they're at the Garden.
I think you're spot on, Frank. What Coach Pitino has done in just 2 seasons at the helm is remarkable. I know his resume speaks for itself. He's a Hall of Famer through and through. He's been there and done that, whether that be national championships at Louisville, Kentucky, the Boston Celtics, the New York Knicks. And I really believe he's going to bring St. John's to the promised land here. I know that. And I know he's totally focused on that. His energy, his enthusiasm has been remarkable. He truly is a disruptor. I know it's a buzzword in the business industry and a change agent. Not only change his program, he's forcing change within our athletics department, forcing change within our university. And it's needed. And it's amazing how he does it and what it means to him. He's been a lightning rod, and I've enjoyed every minute of working with him in the last 8-9 months on the job. And I number 1 recruiting class in the country right now. Yes, I've seen the top 5, top 10 polls, and you nailed it, Frank. And Coach Pitino will say this personally. He's been in the Garden during Nick winning streaks and MSG when the fan base is excited. He's been at multiple Final Fours, as we all know, at Louisville, Kentucky, Providence. He said nothing compared to this past season's run at MSG and the sold out crowds there and the energy, enthusiasm at MSG. It's the adrenaline, the passion that comes out of that Garden is special, and hoping to play as many games as we can at MSG. I think it really is a perfect connection to our fan base. And I also think it represents the heart and soul of our city. Whether you're a Subway alum, whether you grew up rooting for St. John's, whether you went to St. John's or not, you really are a St. John's fan, and it's the college basketball team in the tri-state area. As you know, there's really not college football in this area, so it is a basketball city. St. John's is the mecca. MSG is the mecca of basketball, and I think it is a lot of kind of respect for the blue collar of our fan base, blue collar of our alumni base, first generation college graduates who did it the right way and lunch pail and hard hat to work every day, whether they're parents or themselves. And that's the way his team plays defense, top defense, number 2 defense in the country last year. And Rick is a New Yorker through and through. I think he fits the mold, as you know. So we're very, very lucky to have him here. Kudos to Father Shanley for making that hire, making that decision, investing in the passion of St. John's University. And, what he and Father Shanley and the board of trustees and Joe Lee have done in hiring Rick, it's starting to really pay dividends here. So my job is to make sure we make this as sustainable as possible. make sure we're getting return on investment for all this success and try to build a program so that we can stay at that highest of levels.
Yeah, Eddie, our sponsor is the Tunnel to Towers. For our audience, you could go on t2t.org and make as little as $11 a month donation to assist our American heroes. So let's hear from our sponsor, Tunnel to Towers.
Hi, I'm Gary Player. I'm a professional golfer. I've won 165 tournaments, and I'm one of 5 golfers to achieve a Grand Slam career victory. But what means more to me than all of this is my ability to give back and do good, particularly to the United States of America. That's why I'm committed to helping Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Good to see you, Frank.
Good to see you, Gary.
How you doing?
You're one of the most successful golfers that ever played the game. You're an incredible human being, but you joined the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. You see the work we're doing, and you wanted to help us raise money because how much you love America.
And I'll never forget one of the days I went for you in Miami. This lady was on duty with her husband and the police. She heard that her husband had just been killed. Now she's got 2 children. What's the first thought that comes to your mind? How am I going to support these children? How am I going to give them an education? How am I going to give them a normal life? What am I going to do with my mortgage? Tunnel to Towers is right there, across the board. I mean, what you do is fantastic.
Because you know the sacrifice that was made for our country to give us this beautiful country.
I doubt if there's anybody that loves the country more than I do. And I have said gratitude for what this country has not only done for me, but what it's done for the world.
And as a foundation, we're there to help these families after they lose their loved one and they have young families left behind. And I know you're here to join us on that.
Tunnel to Towers is working every day to support America's greatest heroes. Please donate $11 a month at t2t.org. The Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Let us do good.
We're just talking about the basketball team. I mean, obviously, that's what the school is famous for. When you say St. John's University, I'm thinking basketball and I'm thinking the law school. But now we have to address golf. I know you have a Hall of Fame there, and you have 4 players in that Hall of Fame. You have Mike Diffley, you have Andrew Sabota, Keegan, and new Hall of Famer Pat Fogarty. Tell us about those 4 golfers and the Hall of Fame at St. John's.
Yeah, it's and I just want to add, you have a 5th women's golfer, Harron Lee, that is a part of that. And I think, listen, I think you nailed it, Jeff. And again, kudos to Frank Darby, Swoboda, obviously Bradley, and I know obviously what Pat Fogarty and Mike Diffley mean to Frank as well in terms of history. The building blocks that Frank put in place, and I know so much is made of Keegan. I know, Frank, you probably get asked this question all the time too. So much is made of Keegan. But I know Andrew was really the bigger name and the bigger talent at that point when they were at St. John's together in terms of expectations. And I know Andrew's done some great things, I believe, on the Canadian tour and some other aspects. So those 2 golfers just kind of created a whole new level, I think, of golf. And what Frank Darby put in place with those 2 golfers in his program is just remarkable. Keegan did won 9 tournaments as a player from 04 to 08. NCAA regionals, Frank, right? 07, 08. And I think, it just kind of paved the way of, hey, what is St. John's as a program? And now that he's the success in the Ryder Cup and success he's had being in the top 10 right now, it's a destination. You both know more better than me, obviously, the love and passion of golf in this area. Sometimes I think people who maybe aren't as close to golf, the Northeast winters and how challenging that may be. But, Keegan has said that multiple times that he loves so many of the courses here locally. Obviously, it's been well documented his use of sneaking on to Bethpage as a kid and what that means, and sneaking on a bunch of courses as a kid. I think it's just brought just incredible attention and notoriety and pride to St. John's golf program. And I think I continue to see Hall of Famers. Mr. Chen this year, a kid that just graduated from us, 3-time Big East Player of the Year, did the NCAAs this year. It's just a destination where golfers who understand the quality of golf being played here in the Northeast and in the Big East and at St. John's. It's a destination point for those that know it's possible to come out of here. And I think that's a big part of what Keegan's trying to make sure he promotes, and he loves his alma mater, but that it's a destination for golfers to come, prove their game, and then obviously raise their level in terms of an opportunity in the pro level. So it's special. I anticipate we're gonna have many more Hall of Famers coming forward here, Jeff, for sure.
You know, the one person we need to kind of mention, and he was on the PGA Tour last year, and he's been on Corn Ferry for 4 years now, is Ryan McCormick. So Ryan McCormick is one of the next up-and-coming Hall of Famers, and nothing was better about 10, 12 years ago. Ed, I'm not certain if you were there, but they had the FedEx Cup, the Northern Trust at Riverside, and there was nothing better than seeing both Andrew Swoboda and Keegan Bradley. We had a big tent there. We had about 75 people show up, so I do take pride in that, but you know what? There's nothing better than getting notes from a lot of my other guys that did not make it on tour, but they've all been successful in the business world. Like nothing better than, hey, I'm getting married, or I just had a kid as well. And, you know, that's what the coaching's all about. And that's what, Ed, you can relate to that. It's all about the success of what, you know, the kids are doing right now. And they're all great representatives of St. John's.
No, I love that, Frank. And yeah, you were well said. And that FedEx event with both of them is special. And I because I was there at St. John's when Andrew and Keegan were together, I often always bring up Andrew's name when Keegan comes up too, just because how special that team was and that talent is. And Ryan McCormick, well said. And I just want to say, and I think, Jeff, you're probably aware of this, rising sophomore JoJo Dolezal just won the 102nd Long Island Amateur Championship. So rising sophomore, a little bit more talent coming through the golf program. That was a pretty good victory for him recently.
You know, Ed, basically, you know, the ever-changing landscape of college athletics, man, I really admire you for being in this position because, wow, a lot of things going on. But I'm going to ask a couple of questions here. I know you just signed a deal with Adidas, so I'd like to hear about that. Also, Nil, little comments on Nil, and then your relationship with Mike Ropolio, I know, is a big supporter of the athletic department at St. John's.
Yeah. So the landscape changes day by day. You may have saw, President Trump's comments about college athletics yesterday, and he issued some statements about his views and thoughts, and a lot of argument back and forth in terms of not the conceptual part of paying student athletes. I think we're moving on from that a little bit here now with the House settlement, which was approved. The NCAA put forward a settlement that was approved on, and went into effect on July 1 for us. So now the universities, Jeff, are directly issuing payments to student athletes. We at St. John's University are focused right now in terms of university commitment to men's and women's basketball on the house revenue share, the revenue sharing piece of this. But we have opportunities to move forward with all of our programs based on the ability to get some additional dollars and maintain. They have a cap right now of $20.5 million that each school is allowed to issue to any of their student athletes and any of their athletic programs. So we being a non-football school, we're currently under that cap. I think a lot of the conversations you're hearing about the cap or going over it or the use of collectives still and with NIL payments is really coming from the Power Four schools who are hitting that cap quickly because of football and trying to find other avenues of issuing dollars and amounts. Listen, for me, it's always being supportive of the student athlete getting income and making money. I truly do believe the initial thoughts were, and Frank knows as well, being a coach for so long. I used to have a student athlete that played guitar and played in a band. Back in the day, Jeff, they weren't able to play at a wedding because they couldn't receive any income to do that. I had a former tennis player that was a tattoo artist. She wasn't allowed to give out tattoos and receive income. That was against the NCAA regulation, so she couldn't even earn money. Or just the basic of Frank's kids couldn't give a golf lesson, Jeff, and get paid because that was an NCAA violation. So I think we all see how crazy that is. Those kids deserve to make some money, get an internship, get a job, just like every other student across the country. Open up a YouTube page or start do things on social media and make some money. Now, I think the extreme side of that is pay to play versus making some income and getting companies involved or being active. So I think we hopefully try to find a little bit better of a balance there. Fear has always been you didn't want to make them employees and have to pay them benefits. And how do you manage that, right? So But I say that now, it might have been something that it should have been looked at a little differently, especially in the football and basketball space, because an employee status at least would have given us the ability to unionize a little bit, collectively bargain, maybe create a salary cap. Right now, it's the wild, wild west. We're trying to navigate these crazy times. I'm a non-traditional AD. I'll get into Mike Rapoli a little bit in my background, whether it was the NFL or Vitamin Water or Coca-Cola, etc. I'm supportive of generating dollars and income to student athletes. I think they deserve the opportunity to make money just like anybody else. But just the guardrails get a little bit crazy in terms of how we are competing, especially with some of those bigger football schools, SEC, Big Ten. We love New York. I think the three of us are probably biased New Yorkers, but as you know, there's a lot of money throughout the country, and those football towns, Alabama, Tennessee, Oklahoma, they're generating more money than the Green Bay Packers for a college football program. So it truly is big business. It truly is professional sports now. We are professional sports. I tell my coaches that every day. So we're doing our best to generate dollars in revenue, looking at new things. Well, Adidas is a good example of that. Finding a partner that is not only providing us NIL dollars for student athletes, providing us more sponsorship dollars in terms of the marketing value, providing us more merchandise for all of our athletic teams, and truly wants to market us. They have a value. You see a value. We're the first non-FBS football school for Adidas. We're the first Big East school for them. Obviously, they're excited about basketball in New York City. They've opened up another flagship location. It's a global brand, as you both know. So trying to find partners that want to get behind us and invest in us. We're doing some other things with sponsors and licensing and collectible goods, trying to find any avenue to raise money. We're increasing ticket prices for basketball. I did a whole new receipt and priority points program in January. I know it's upset some people, and I get that moving their seats is not nice and not helpful. But it's the business we're in of trying to leverage assets we have and making sure those that are most generous get the best seats we have. And honestly, in terms of the Rapoli question, Mike's a perfect example of what a St. John's alum is. First generation college grad, Queens kid. Frank, unfortunately, he went to he went to Holy Cross. He couldn't get into
Billy Schaefer.
Archbishop Molloy. We'll leave that alone for him. But he talks about being on academic probation at St. John's, and he talks about sneaking away to Aqueduct Racetrack instead of going to class. And he's a true Queens kid. Got his degree. Wanted to be a basketball coach. Went to Luke Carnesecca's basketball camp. Went to his coaching clinics. The first tour of duty for me at St. John's from like 2002 to 06 or 05. I got to meet Mike, got to work with him, trying to sell him courtside tickets or sell him a sponsorship. And he was as passionate back then, before he was a billionaire, as he is now. And he loved the program, wanted to know why we're recruiting people, why we're hiring coaches. And he bought his tickets, or he gave some money to us. And after striking up a relationship with him, he's like, why don't you come work with me over in Whitestone? I just started a beverage company. And I tell this story a lot. The day I told my dad I was leaving St. John's to work at Vitamin Water, he says to me, but Ed, don't you realize like water's free? And he went over to the faucet in my kitchen. He's like, who would pay $2 a bottle? Like, and I think we all grew up the same way. And he's like, are you out of your mind? People ain't going to buy bottled water. Before now, everybody walks around, not only bottled water, they have this $50, container that everybody's carrying water in these days. And you're like, how did that world change? But again, 25 years ago, who knew? So kudos to Mike. He's an expert in what he does. He obviously Vitamin Water, Body Armor, Pirates Booty. He's sold a lot of companies. His new one has been Noble, and they've been very supportive. His apparel brand, in partnership with Tom Brady, has been really supportive NIL wise. A lot of our student athletes. He wants to win. But he also, from a marketing and business standpoint, Jeff and Frank, knows that winning in basketball will elevate the profile of St. John's University. So whether that's applications, enrollment, branding, overall fundraising, national prominence, the strategy is using Rick Pitino and the basketball program as the true lightning rod to generate and elevate the entire university. So believe me, he's not living in a bubble on this. He truly sees it as a platform. So enrollment's up right now, 8%. Obviously, hopefully that continues to grow. But how do we utilizing? And that's the beauty of what I do. it's not just athletics. I know I wave the athletics flag as proudly as I can, but how do we make and utilize hoops and our efforts in athletics to improve the entire university? Because it's not just an NCAA problem right now. Higher education is in an interesting time. You can't just keep raising tuition, and the value proposition of education is being scrutinized. And we need to make sure that we're doing our due diligence across the board and we're all aligned appropriately.
Hey, Ed, just one quick thing about NIL, and I think I was reading about it. The Big East is in a pretty nice position, right? Because you don't have to share money with the football programs, right? So is that money going to help our other programs at St. John's?
So great point, Frank. And that is a perceived benefit right now in the Big East schools that do not have football. Of course, UConn does. They're a little bit out of that conversation. And of course, even Georgetown does on an FCS level, but a little different. It is perceived as an advantage for us where we're able to stay underneath that cap and have some flexibility, where if obviously a partner wanted to give money to the golf program and do it through the revenue share, we're able to do that right now. So it goes right to the golfers and we're able to help our program. The Power Four in theory right now is capped at 20.5. The variable here, though, Frank and Jeff, and it's early, right? It's only a few weeks into this official House settlement, is the collectives have not gone away. So I say that in that everybody's trying to argue what's the role of the collectives outside of the universities, because as you know, the SEC, the Big Ten, they have a lot of supporters, a lot of boosters. Them having a salary cap, and let's say, the Big East is not going to sit well with those programs. So they're using their collectives to go above and beyond. That's a lot of the argument that's being made of where those roles should be. The NCAA has established a commission, including the use of Deloitte, to assess and evaluate those external contracts to make sure there's fair market value on it, fair market assessment. Very, very difficult argument to say what's fair market value, especially as you gentlemen know, with New York City and where we live and the cost of living. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. But I still think, Frank, they're going to be able to utilize those collectives to go above and beyond the 20.5. So I'm skeptical of that advantage for us, because I don't think the state legislations, you're seeing a lot of political arguments here. They're not going to allow those SEC and Big Ten schools to be any kind of disadvantage from my.
Cool.
Great information, Eddie. Wow,
Yeah,
really
really
good
good
stuff there. But, Eddie, our sponsor, as you know already, is the Tunnel to Towers. And we want to send you a pair of leather-wrapped Scotch glasses. We'll get your address and we'll send you this to St. John's. And maybe you can have a drink when the USA wins in September 28th there. But before we let you go, Ed, I had a question for you. I was watching the NCAA games, and I saw St. John's playing up at Providence, and Keegan was in the stands. Tell us how that all played out. I saw he had the jersey on and everything like that. That was pretty cool to see.
Yeah, so Keegan is a huge basketball fan. He's been very active on social media. I think he's been supportive of Coach Pitino on the program and cheering on the program. And we've sent him some jerseys and some gear and some sneakers and stuff. So he's been great. And I think Providence was the perfect regional based on where he was. I don't know if he was home up north, but he had the ability to come. Frank, he came with, Ballo. I think Ballo really kind of was the gentleman that kind of orchestrated that, which is great. And he had his son with him. Keegan has had his kids being a part of his success, which is wonderful to see him grow. And obviously, his family is got a beautiful family. And, obviously I've been to his foundation events a couple of times, which I know, Frank, you're very active and involved in. So he wanted to be there. He came to the hotel for the kind of the pre-kickoff and met the players, took photos with alums. He had his gear on, and, Keegan was through and through. He spent some time. I think he got a chance to say hello to Coach Pitino. He actually spent some time with Mike Rapoli and some of our other alums too. So Keegan was excited for the regional. Obviously, we won that first one against Omaha. Unfortunately, lost to Calipari and Arkansas in the second one. But I think it worked out well that Keegan was able to be there and take some photos and integrate with our fan base. And everybody's excited about the Ryder Cup and what he means for school spirit and school pride, but national country pride. And I just quickly want to say, Jeff, I know we're sensitive on time. Tunnel for Towers, amazing cause. We actually did a game for them last year against New Mexico. It was Coach Pitino versus his son. The sponsor and the partner was Tunnel for Towers. Tunnel for Towers is very personal for Coach Pitino his brother-in-law and best friend, Billy Minardi, which is actually how Coach met his wife. They went to St. Dominic's High School together on Long Island. He died. He was Cancer Fitzgerald. He died at 9/11. So Tunnel for Towers is very, very personal for Coach Pitino. I know he does a lot of work and appearances and fundraising for them. So I want to say you're working with a wonderful cause and a wonderful partner that we're all very passionate with. And as you know, as New Yorkers, that hits home for all of us.
You know, for our viewers, you could listen and hear us on YouTube, Spotify, Facebook, X, LinkedIn. Please like, share, love, repost, collaborate. We'd really, really appreciate that. You know, Eddie, I happen to be the sports medicine director for the Tunnel to Towers and also an advisory board member. I'd love to build maybe a stronger relationship with your athletic department. Maybe some of the kids can volunteer, your athletes can volunteer. I also control the finish line at the Tunnel to Towers. So maybe we could send you some information and get some of the teams to assist in that great American race.
I would love that. Frank Alasia has talked to me about the same thing. And of course, Richard Lapchick, we're trying to work on a little bit of a project with him and his great efforts and organization in honor of his dad. So whatever we could do to collaborate and work together, I'd love to do that. I think it's not only an opportunity for our student athletes to get involved and help and learn and get some work experience, it's good for them to continue to get the education of what Tunnel for Towers means in our city and what it means to New York City. So I'd love to do that. Please keep us posted.
Sure. And we really thank you for your time. It's going to be really exciting. Hopefully, just one last question. You're going to be at the Ryder Cup. We're going to see you there, right?
Yeah, that is my intention, my support, obviously, to be there for Keegan. I just think it's a once-in-a-lifetime moment. I think it's larger than life here, and I'm super excited for not only Keegan, but for our country. Listen, I'm not going to pretend I'm not the biggest golf fan or golf player. I have young kids, so I got to get back into it, hopefully when they get through college. But and my schedule with the crazy job. But I love the Ryder Cup. It's like it's the Olympics to me in terms of obviously representing our country. I know Keegan feels the same way. And I love the team golf model. I got to tell you both, and I'm not the golf guy, but I'd love to see more team golf events. I think that approach, that strategy really resonates with even some of the non-golf fans. And I think it may engage more folks to get involved with the sport. I don't know your thoughts, but I've always wondered, why is there not more of a team golf model? I saw some of the new league, and I know Tiger's involved with that, but I hope that has some traction because I think team golf is a cool concept. I really do.
Sure.
Yeah,
sure.
I think that TGL is going to be very popular. We haven't heard much because of the Ryder Cup, but it's gonna kick up again once November comes. So, hey Ed, listen, it's been great having you on and talking with you, and we'll hopefully see you at the Ryder Cup.
Look forward, guys. Anything I could do to help your efforts around the Ryder Cup or get St. John's involved or local events. I know tickets are a premium. I know hospitality is a premium on some of that, but however we could help our St. John's family and loved ones around the Ryder Cup, maybe those that can't afford it, how can we do that? And again, want to try to make sure we are everybody's wearing the red the entire weekend in terms of in support of USA as well as St. John's University.
Great. Thanks, Ed.
Thanks, Ed. Great job.
Thank you.